Just a quick reflection of the big shift that's happening right now in the upcoming parshas. Starts with this parsha, and it's all downhill from there. Right? It's parsha Shlach, Meraglim, parshas Korach, and that thingamajig, that whole machlokes, and then we're going to have coming up after it's Balak. Right, and the whole everything that Bilam did to us, and right, this is a very interesting, ups and downs over here that all has to do with vision, seeing. Right, we talk about Maimon Har Sinai, that there was first of all the greatest ever event of seeing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to whatever extent, the greatest Gilui Elokos, so much so that Chazal say, Cholam Roim Esakolos, on that pasuk, they saw the sounds. So Chazal tell us that even sounds became visible. It's an unbelievable visual experience, even though see sound. And we're going to talk about that, what that Inyan is. Right? And then we talked about last week, Baaloscha, that we give HaKadosh Baruch Hu the light of the menorah, and it's considered a big schus that we give light. But then, what happened historically, and then what happens in the Seder of the Parshas, what we read, our first failure that we read since Shavuos is Ched HaMeraglim. We read it less than 40 days after Shavuos. What happened 40 days after Shavuos, still more than 40 days, just 40, 41 or so, 42 days after Shavuos, was Chet HaEgel. There's a very interesting common denominator between them. It says by Chet HaEgel, Vayar Ha'am ki boshesh Moshe laretz minahar. They saw that Moshe Rabbeinu has not yet come down from. And of course, Chazal say, what do you mean saw? They say they calculated, they counted on their fingers, must have been 40 days, right? What is saw? So to answer that kasha, Chazal say, Rashi brings it, that the Satan projected an image as if they thought they saw Moshe Rabbeinu's coffin. They thought they saw something that made it look like, maybe he died up there. There was actually something visual, aside from, as it were, calculating that it must have been 40 days. No, he's not back. They actually saw something. Now, what happened by the Meraglim? They saw Eretz Yisrael, and they didn't know how to interpret what they were seeing. Like Rashi brings from Chazal, and everywhere they went, there were Levias. Everyone, it seemed like everyone, Eretz Ochel Yoshvei, everyone's just dropping dead over there. So, of course, they didn't get the right spin on it. They didn't know how to look at it correctly, that because there were these Levias, everyone was preoccupied, they were able to infiltrate, right? So they didn't realize that HaKadosh was doing it for their own good. That way people would be distracted by the Levias and they could infiltrate. But they didn't have the right perspective on it, right? So there's the faulty perspective by Chet HaEgel, the faulty perspective by the Meraglim. Right? Chet HaEgel is what we, historically happened right after Matan Torah. Chet HaMeraglim is what first failure that we read about after we had the Yom Tov of Shavuos. Right? And they both have a common denominator of faulty perspective. And next week's parsha, Korach. Right? That... So Rashi brings from Chazal, Korach she'apikech ma ra'a l'shtut zu. Korach was a smart guy. Why did he do something so stupid to start up with Moshe Rabbeinu? Eino hit also. Right, he was misled by what he saw. Because he saw Baruch HaKodesh, he's going to have Shmuel descend from him, and Shmuel is as big as Moshe and Aaron combined. Chazal tell us, we learn from Moshe and Aaron b'chanav, u'Shmuel b'kori Shmo, that Shmuel is like as big as Moshe and Aaron. Right, so he's, I have this great descendant coming out of me, I must be hot stuff also, or I can't lose, whatever, but it was a mistaken perspective. Right? He didn't realize that, was by no merit of his, that Shmuel came out of him. And then it says also, Parshas Balak opens up, Vayar Balak ben Tzipor, he saw, and he got really upset by what he saw, and that's why he hires Bilam. And Bilam also, he wants to, have a view, when he builds the Mizbachot to try to get, not get Hashem, try to convince Hashem to allow him to curse. So it says he has to see the Am, the Tireu Misham, right? It says a view on the people. Of course, he was trying to do it for Ayin Hara's sake, right? But again, it has to do with Re'iyah, right? A little bit of a tikkun to that is that after, Bilam gives this eitzah, to be machshel, the Jewish people, with znus. So it says, Vayar Pinchas. Pinchas saw, and then it really, moved him, and he took the spear, and he skewered Zimri and Cosby. But also it says, Vayar, he saw, Vayikach Romach. So there's a little bit of a tikkun. We see the ups and downs of seeing. That's like, our high points, are with seeing, like Roy Mesakolos, right? And then there's, our low points that also have to do with seeing, right? And the truth is like this is really what's written in the Kisvei Ari, at great length, right? That Olam Hazeh, which is the world that needs tikkun, this world that needs tikkun, and it's this world that has its ups and downs. Heaven doesn't have ups and downs. No Brexit in heaven. It's all right. And they don't join the EU to begin with. They right. The ups and downs, of Olam Hazeh, right? Which is the visual world. What makes Gashmias. That it's visible. It's apparent to the senses. That's the most basic definition of Gashmias. Gashmias is what you could see. See is like the most megusham form of Gashmias, but if you could hear it and smell it and taste it, it's also physical. Nitfas b'chushim, of course, the most major one being seeing, right? And this world of Gashmias that has its ups and downs, right? Where it branched out from, so it says in Kisvei Ari, from the Oros Ha'einayim of Adam Kadmon, that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a certain tzura that all the olamas branched out from, and imagine that original tzura that sets up the scale for all of creation. Like set up like a framework. And when he created the world, he first set up a framework, and then all the olamas fit into a certain framework. All right, that big framework that all the olamas fit into is called Adam Kadmon. That all would look like a person if you could see all the olamas together. And Olam Hazeh branched out from the Oros Ha'einayim. All Gashmias comes from Oros Ha'einayim that has its ups and downs. Right? And to explain a little bit more, right, just about this, the idea that your eyes can fool you, right? Optical illusion, but not just optical illusion, but the eyes, they really don't see the why. They don't know what you're thinking. They see you do something. And that's where being dan lekaf schus comes in, because the eyes don't see the whole story; they just know what it looks like, and that's the big challenge: be dan lekaf schus and not be dan lekaf chova. To look ba'ayin tova and not to look ba'ayin ra. Right. Right. The thing is that what needs fixing in the world. What needs fixing is the way things appear. That's what needs fixing. Because the truth is like this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the king, and Ritzono is the only power. Everything is Lefi Ritzono. It just doesn't look that way. So now by Mamad Arsei, that's what it means. Cholam Roy Mesakos. They saw the sounds. They could see the Dvar Hashem in everything. And everything is Al-Pi Diburo Yisborach. Everything's Al-Pi Gzeroso. They could see those sounds. That was a special madrega on by Mamad Arsinai. They could see the sounds. They could see that Dvar Hashem is running everything. Now, the truth is Dvar Hashem is running everything. But, what's the problem? It doesn't look that way. The whole kilkul. The only thing that's wrong with the world is the way it looks. But Hashem Be'etzem is the king and the one and only force, and everything is Bertzono, and everything is there to serve him. The only kilkul is that it doesn't look that way. And that's why you'll find all the nevuos and all the tefillos are all b'loshen re'iyah. V'tzechazena eineinu b'shuv chalatzion. V'areinu Hashem okeu b'nachmas tzion recha. Ki ayin bayin yor shur Hashem. V'ro kol basar yachdav. Go check any nevuah, any tefillah that talks about how things will be better in the future. All uses a lashon of re'iyah, because that's the only thing that really needs fixing. Because really, Hashem is the king,
so how do we fix that?
Oh, how do we fix that? Yeah, everything that we do, everything that you do good, is all to fix how things look. And that's called the imatake in Gashmis. Gashmis is the visible world. We got to fix the perspective. Now here's the problem. Perspective is reality. The way you see it is the way you're going to live it. And if you look at things badly, it's going to be bad for you, because that's your reality. The way you look at things is the way it is for you, right? And that explains the inyan of ayin hara. The inyan of ayin hara is, it's a visible world. And if you look at it badly, it'll be bad, right? For you and for everyone, it's in your field of vision, because you're going to put that negative perspective on anything that falls within the purview of what you see, right? So where your view of the physical world, that's reality according to you, right? And that's the power of ayin hara. Right, have a bad perspective on things. The way you see it is the way it is for you and for anyone that you have influence on. You look at it right. This guy who has an ayin hara, when he walks into a room, he ruins the atmosphere in the whole room for everybody. These are the guys that walk into a party and ruin everything just by being there. And looking at things. I say Yoni really is really connecting to this. Yoni's very contemplative.
This is one of the reasons why I hate going to shultz.
Hate going where?
There's always one guy in the shul that ruins the whole.
No, but just and how's he do it? By the way, by his gaze. You could feel. You could. It's amazing. You think it's just in his mind, the ayin hara. The ayin hara is not just in the mind of the observer. You can feel the power of his negative view. No, and that's also the power of group pressure. Also, that's ayin hara. We can make it like that. If 10 people walk into a room where they have a particular perspective on things, it sort of becomes like the mood in the room, and you're afraid to argue with them. You feel stupid if you argue with them. The windows to the world are the eyes. It's not the windows to the world. It's not just in the mind of the observer, right? Everything that falls in his gaze sort of gets caught up in his perspective in a certain way. And that's the power of ayin hara. But that's also the power how you can influence people without saying words. If like I said, try this at home. You have 10 people get into a room, they all have a particular view on something. Tarte mashma. That becomes the energy in the room, and you're embarrassed to argue with them on that particular topic that they feel very strongly about. Even though they didn't really verbalize any strong arguments, that becomes the mood. It all happens through the eyes. Eyes are a two-way street, really. It's not just the way you're not just taking in information. You also, the way you interpret that information also shoots out through the eyes into the space.
What about blind people?
So that's why. Very good. That's why Suma Chashuv Kameis. He's out of the game because he's blind. That's why he's considered like dead. That's the point. Now you just brought a riot to what we're saying. No, I'm
just thinking of the
eyes are the windows to reality. But it's a window. It's a two-way street. You don't just.
You don't just. Reality check. You could be feeling something, not understanding you're feeling something until you actually see it.
Right. Right. And that's that is most accentuated in this week's parsha. Am Yisrael adopted the Meraglim's view of things. They adopted the Meraglim's view. The Meraglim had a very negative view of what they saw, even though it wasn't really negative at all. Like Rashi's, we quoted before, all the device that they saw, that was all for their benefit, right? But they took that negative view. Am Yisrael adopted that view. Even perspectives are contagious, and that's why we have Tisha B'Av. Because if you take that view, because perspective is reality, and here's the thing: perspective is contagious. Perspective is contagious, and that it all gets shared through the eyes. The same eyes that he takes in and he gets that negative spin. That negative spin he puts on what he sees, he sends back out to space through the same eyes.
So how can we still cry in Tisha B'Av if it's all perspective? We should change Tisha B'Av into the Yom Chag.
We should, but we have to be real with it. We say that the Shekhinah is everywhere and God's everything, and the Ramchal says that Mefurash in the Das Runas. If a critical amount of people would believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, be'emes, and that everything that the Goyim say and the secular world says is all sheker, the tikkun will be on the spot. But you need a critical amount of people that share that view at the same time. Right?
How come this is not kind of like tit for tat type of thing, that just because what we did, so Hashem says, oh, you did like this, I'm going to make sure it's going to be like
so
that
it's
for the Doros.
Right.
It sounds like a tit for tat type of.
Yeah, but he's saying like this, if you believe that, you're going to live that.
Oh, you're saying that this is reality. He's not saying this as a punishment. It's just that's what it is.
Right. You want to believe that, but you want to believe in your perspective is going to be your reality. Yeah, I mean that's a part of it, right? But that's the whole thing. The whole ikar of what we say tikkun agashmius, mitaken olam hazeh. It could all be said like this: being mitaken the way things appear, and that's why all the nevuos and all it is all about re'iyah, right? Ve'inenu sirena malchusecha. Every tefillah, any nevuah, take a look. It always uses the verb of re'iyah, because that's called to fix the world, to fix the way things appear. So when betikuno Am Yisrael, that Am Yisrael by Mamad Har Sinai for a short amount of time, Pascha Masan, and they could see Royim Esakos, they could see God's glory everywhere. And while we were still on, somewhat on the level, it's called that we also generate this positive light with the lighting of the menorah, things that we discussed last week, right? That we also could, that's like, generate a positive light on the world, right? But then there's, but it still remains a challenge, right? Perspectives are tricky, right? And that was the failure of Am Yisrael by Cheda Ego. That was the failure. It starts Vayam Kiboshesh Moshe. They had a perspective that maybe Moshe is gone. They took on that perspective, and that perspective became reality. They acted upon that perspective. Right? It happened by the Meraglim. They didn't know how to properly process what they were seeing.
Took them
right?
all these parshas to get out of it.
Yeah. And then
you got Shlach, you got Korah, you got Balak.
Yeah, Korach made the same mistake. At least, thank God, only affected 250 people. He took 250 people down with him,
Pinchas
right?
Put the end to it.
So Pinchas, in a certain way, he had a positive. Like everyone else was just saw what Zimri was doing, they were crying. But there was crying. What can you do? Nebuch, it's a bad door. He saw and he took action. It's a different perspective of how you could. There was difference in perspective. That's what it says. Vayar, he saw. Ra Maisa, Chazal say Ra Maisa v'niskar halacha, right? But it still starts off with Ra Maisa. He had a different. Everyone else is looking with Yush. It's the end of Klal Yisrael. It's the end. We're assimilating. We're in bed. Everyone was there. They were crying. They saw and they cried. Pinchas saw and took action, and it started Vayar Pinchas. So Ra Maisa v'niskar halacha, but it all starts with Ra Maisa. He had a different perspective of what he was seeing. They were seeing hopelessness. And the whole class was watching and crying. One man looked at it and saw it differently. Like, I'm going to make them a shish kebab, right? They were crying, so I'm going to turn them into shish kebab, and because of that, Vayechaper al bnei Yisrael. One man had the right perspective. Vayechaper al bnei Yisrael, right? And that's the 3 weeks are coming. That's the big the big Churban Habayis. The Beis is called Oro Shel Olam. You come to the Beis Liros is Pnei Adon Hashem. And that's what the world's missing without a Beis. You can't see God. God's everywhere just as much. You just don't see it. That's the Beis Midrash. Yerushalayim is Oro Shel Olam, right? And you don't have the opportunity. Liros Pnei. That's what needs. But it's a medrash. It's the medrash took it from Avram Fried.
Yeah, no. Avram Fried made the medrash accessible to everyone. There's a song they don't even realize they know it.
Yeah, right. No, it's right. So but it's because you come to basically liros to to see God, to get the perspective on reality, and that's what we're missing. All right, so that's where we're headed. That by Mamar I say we had the height of correct perspective, right? Right on God, on life, on the universe, on everything. Kiloisim kol, we know God has no form. We also Rikiroim Esakolos. It was like we went from when the perspective was betikuna, but we couldn't hold it because it didn't that tikkun didn't harden, and it went back, and and the son was allowed to wage a counter war and be machshel amisov vayaram ki boshesh Moshe l'eredis minahar, and then for the next year with the meraglim, and that's the challenge ever since. A challenge of we have to overcome and not accept things as they appear, but add a new interpretation, a positive spin and interpretation to change the perspective, and then to the extent that we believe in that positive interpretation and we process things positively, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will mamash make it that way, that things will really, really objectively look that way, as Lashon V'ro kol basar yachtav. In flesh, it'll be undeniably visible to everyone, but we have to make that tikkun. We have to reprocess what we see, and then put it in a Torah-dika light, and to the extent that we're strong in that perspective that we want to put on it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will make a reality that way, that in the future it'll look that way to everybody and anybody. B'mheira b'yamein.
Amen. This is the basis of what psychologists say, think positively.